What if everything we thought we knew about Biggie Smalls' murder was a lie? For nearly 3 decades, the case surrounding one of hip-hop's most tragic deaths has been buried in the shadows. The story we all know, the shooting, the suspects, the theories, has been accepted as the truth. But a recently leaked audio recording has thrown everything into chaos. At 3:47 a.m., inside a solitary confinement cell at Donovan State Prison, a voice that had been silenced for years finally spoke out. And what it revealed? Well, it's not what anyone expected. For the first time, Sug Knight, the man who was always loomed over the Biggie Smalls case, named names. He didn't just speak about the night Biggie was killed. He laid out details that no one, not even the FBI, had ever known. Details that point straight to the people responsible, and they're not who you think they are. This isn't just a confession, it's a bombshell, and it's shaking the very foundation of a case that was thought to be closed for good. Stay with us, because the truth about Biggie's murder is far more complex and dangerous than anyone ever imagined.
Section 1. The leaked recording. It's 3:47 a.m., the still of the night. Inside the high-security walls of Donovan State Prison, something no one was prepared for happened. A 17-minute recording, hidden deep within the prison's surveillance system, surfaced and caused immediate chaos. But it wasn't the entire recording that sparked the outrage. It was the first 19 seconds. In those 19 seconds, a deep, raspy voice cut through the air like a whisper from the past, but the weight behind each word felt like a punch to the gut. It wasn't loud, it wasn't emotional, but it carried something far more chilling: the truth. I wasn't wrong. I kept quiet because there are things bigger than the cops. But if you want to know who did it, it's not the guy you all thought it was. That voice, unmistakably matching Sug Knight's, made one thing crystal clear. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. It wasn't a mistake. Sug Knight, the infamous CEO of Death Row Records, had spent years silent. But now, in the dead of night, he was breaking the silence on a murder that's haunted the world for over 2 decades. What he said next, that's what sent shockwaves through the entire legal system. Sug didn't just hint at the truth. He named names. Names that had never been tied to the case. Names that had never been mentioned in any official report. And with that revelation, everything we thought we knew about Biggie's death came into question.
Section 2. The details of the confession. The recording begins slowly, almost methodically, as Sug Knight's voice breaks the silence of his prison cell. There's no urgency, no frantic shouting, just a calm, deliberate recounting of a night that would forever change the course of hip-hop history. He starts with something simple: the vehicles involved in Biggie Smalls' fateful night. The black USV carrying Biggie was part of a motorcade, but it wasn't the only vehicle moving in the area. Sug mentions another car, an old Chevrolet Impala, one that wasn't part of the official convoy, but was seen circling the area twice within minutes of the shooting. Why was it there? What role did it play in the events leading up to Biggie's death? Sug doesn't stop there. He names someone who had always been a shadow over the case, someone who had never been officially tied to the murder. Reggie D, a former LAPD officer who had worked briefly as a security manager for Death Row Records, but who never appeared in any official reports as a suspect. But Sug's tone never wavers. He doesn't accuse, doesn't shout. It's almost as if he's simply stating facts, like a man who has carried a heavy truth for too long. Reggie always carried a gray duffel, Sug says, almost matter-of-factly. Met with 2 men no one had seen before. One of them wore an FBI jacket. The name Reggie D had surfaced before, but never in connection to the murder. And yet Sug's statement brought his presence into sharper focus, tying him to the scene in a way that could not be ignored. And as Sug goes deeper, the more undeniable it becomes that the pieces of this puzzle were always there, buried, hidden in plain sight, until now.
Section 3. The Unseen Hand of Control. Sug Knight's confession doesn't just expose new suspects, it hints at something far more sinister. A system that was designed to keep the truth buried. It's not about one person pulling a trigger. It's about a network of people who pulled the strings behind the scenes. As Sug continues, his voice steady and unshaken, he says, "I'm not saying who pulled the trigger, but I know who gave permission. And they're not on the street. They're upstairs, where nobody can touch." The message is clear. This wasn't just a random act of violence or a gang dispute. It was an execution, carried out under the protection of a higher power. But Sug doesn't name names. He doesn't point fingers at the people in power who orchestrated it all. Instead, he talks about the system, the layers of protection that kept this whole thing under wraps for so long. Payments were made in the days leading up to Biggie's death, at least 2 large cash withdrawals, marked with the code TR92, one for $2,000 and another for $4,800, with no clear purpose, just a note, double insurance. This wasn't a random payout. These were emergency funds siphoned off for something bigger, something dangerous. One of those payments was made just hours before the murder, and one of the people involved in the transaction had been pulled from their security post just days earlier, Reggie D. Sug doesn't need to shout or scream for the weight of his words to land. His calm delivery of these details paints a picture of a carefully executed plan, one that didn't just involve street-level figures, but powerful people behind the scenes who made sure everything stayed in the dark. And with every name he drops, every detail he reveals, it becomes clearer. The layers of this conspiracy go beyond what anyone ever imagined. But this wasn't just about financial moves or shady deals. It was about control, about making sure the right people stayed silent and that no one would be able to unravel the tangled web of lies. And the most shocking part? They almost got away with it.
Section 4. The investigation that was suppressed. For 27 years, the case surrounding Biggie Smalls' murder was considered closed. Officially, the FBI had closed the case in 2005, citing a lack of concrete evidence and witnesses unwilling to come forward. But Sug Knight's confession didn't just reopen old wounds, it forced the legal system to confront the inconvenient truths that had been hidden for decades. In the midst of this storm, a string of leaked documents began to surface, files that had been buried and classified, each one hinting at something far more orchestrated than anyone ever imagined. One such document, an internal assessment from the California Department of Justice dated April 29, 1998, was stamped non-disclosable. The document described coordination between private security and a special police division monitoring the area near Wilshire, yet dismissed the idea of an organized attack. No names, no leads, just a quiet rejection of further investigation. But it didn't stop there. The mysterious Black Vault Directive, an administrative code never seen in any public case files, was used to block all reports that intersected with surveillance networks, effectively sealing off any attempt to connect the dots. It was a command, not an agency, issued by an anonymous authority with one goal: silence. As Sug's confession made clear, this wasn't just a failure to investigate, it was an active cover-up. A plan that involved not just law enforcement, but also the power structures that controlled the flow of information.
And every time a potential witness tried to speak, every time a new lead emerged, they were met with a brick wall. No one had the power to get to the truth, except the ones orchestrating the cover-up. This deliberate suppression of evidence went far beyond the actions of one man. It was a network of individuals working together to make sure that Biggie Smalls' murder stayed buried where no one could touch it. And all the while, Sug Knight, the man most suspected of being involved, remained locked away. His voice never heard, his side of the story ignored.
Section 5. The Public Outcry. Once Sug Knight's secret confession was leaked, the impact was immediate and far-reaching. What was meant to be a quiet, isolated recording exploded into a media firestorm that couldn't be ignored. The ripple effects spread like wildfire, catching the attention of not only the hip-hop community, but the entire world. At 6:07 p.m., KRLA Television in Los Angeles aired the segment titled Sug Knight's Suppressed Confession, featuring a chilling 12-second clip from the audio. Within hours, independent media channels picked it up, dissecting every word, every detail, and analyzing every piece of evidence tied to the confession. The overwhelming public reaction was clear. People wanted answers, and they wanted them now. The legal system, on the other hand, found itself scrambling. Biggie Smalls' family, who'd fought tirelessly for justice, wasted no time filing an urgent motion to reopen the case. Their filing specifically pointed to the newly surfaced evidence, especially Sug's mention of crucial names and details that were never part of the official investigation. Within hours of the motion being filed, the court responded with a simple one-line statement: jurisdiction under review. While the legal system stalled, the public was relentless. The media kept the pressure on, and human rights organizations rallying behind the demand for justice. Former investigators from the 2005 case, who had been silenced before their report could be released, held their own press conference, confirming that many of the details Sug Knight provided matched facts that had been omitted or ignored in the original investigation. And yet the silence from those closest to the source, the people tied to death row records and those who had been part of Biggie's world, was deafening. No comments, no denials, no confirmations. It was as if the entire industry had agreed to say nothing, to pretend like this new revelation didn't matter. One artist who had worked with Sug Knight between 1995 and 1998 posted a cryptic message on Twitter. They're not ready to hear what really happened, and this time, no one's allowed to say it. The divide within the hip-hop community was undeniable. On one side, a call for justice echoed loud and clear. On the other, an eerie silence settled in, as though the truth was something people were too afraid to confront. Section 6. The Fractured System. As Sug Knight's confession continued to circulate, the focus shifted from the content of his words to the broader web of manipulation that allowed this story to stay hidden for so long. What began as an isolated incident, an inmate's confession, soon revealed itself to be part of a much larger, coordinated effort to keep the truth from surfacing. Independent cybersecurity experts, tracing the origin of the leaked recording, uncovered signs of deep system interference, anomalous access logs, deleted data, and IP addresses routed through foreign servers, all pointing to something much larger than a simple technical error. According to one former DHS cybersecurity officer, the metadata from Sug's recording showed evidence of multi-tiered interference, a sophisticated attempt to scrub any trace of the audio file from the system. The analysis revealed that the recording was not pulled from Donovan State Prison's official inventory, but rather from a surveillance device that wasn't even listed in the prison's catalog. Even stranger, the system logs from the 2nd to the 5th of the month, the days around the recording's extraction, were marked as blank due to software update errors. Yet it didn't take long for independent teams to discover that these errors were too precise to be accidental.
The data had been overwritten using specialized code, a stream spoofing emulator known as Ghost Path, often used in military-grade surveillance operations. This wasn't a mistake. This was a deliberate operation designed to make sure Sug Knight's confession never saw the light of day.
But that wasn't all. The forensic analysis went deeper. During the period between 3:41 a.m. and 4:09 a.m., the exact time Sug's voice was recorded, anomalous network traffic was traced to an anonymous European IP, which then routed back to California within seconds. This wasn't a random fluke. This routing pattern is known to be used exclusively in sensitive exchanges within intelligence networks. The plot thickened when investigators traced DMCA takedown requests for Sug's confession across a series of ghost domains, temporary sites created just long enough to pass through content review, yet linked to no real entity. In one case, the takedown request came from a server tied to a 2013 NSA cybersecurity campaign, a fact no one could easily dismiss as coincidence. And the most chilling detail of all? An unauthorized access of the LAPD's 1997 image archive, specifically the folder that supposedly held the original footage from an ATM camera at the scene of Biggie's murder. The access was brief, only 92 seconds, but it led to the deletion of 47 TIFF files. 3 of those files had been referenced in an internal investigation in 2006. They were never recovered. When Sug's confession is viewed alongside these technical findings, the picture becomes disturbingly clear. A concerted, highly organized effort to erase every trace of evidence that could link those responsible for Biggie's murder. A system built to scrub the truth from history. This wasn't just a cover-up by a few individuals. This was a network, a mechanism designed to control the flow of information, to hide the truth, and to make sure that Biggie Smalls' death remained an unsolved mystery. Now, with the confession finally exposed and the evidence mounting, one question remains. How deep does this conspiracy go? And who will be held accountable when the system that was meant to protect the truth starts crumbling beneath its own lies?
Conclusion: the bigger picture. After all these years of silence, the truth about Biggie Smalls' murder is finally coming to light. Sug Knight's confession didn't just reveal new suspects, it shattered the illusion of a closed case, exposing the cracks in a system designed to bury the truth. What started as a single audio file leaked from a high-security prison now forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew. The names, the financial transactions, the unexplained phone calls. Each new detail spins a web of connections that has remained hidden for nearly 3 decades. And while we still don't have all the answers, one thing is certain: the story isn't over. The cover-up was never as complete as they thought. The real question now is not who pulled the trigger, but who controlled the narrative, who made sure the investigation stayed dormant, who buried evidence and manipulated the system to keep the truth from ever surfacing. The public has spoken, and the pressure on the legal system is building, but will it be enough to finally bring justice for Biggie? The wheels of justice are turning, but they've been stuck in place for so long. This isn't just about one man's confession or one criminal case. It's about a system that was built to silence the truth. And now, with the truth starting to slip through the cracks, it's only a matter of time before the system itself starts to break apart. Biggie Smalls may be gone, but his story is far from finished, and this time, the truth may be harder to bury than ever before.